What do you like about Crows aside from just the weather?
Well, Crows gives, especially us in the Northwest, a unique opportunity to get some practice on concrete. Back at Lincoln at the national event, um, it is all concrete. We don't have any facilities in the Pacific Northwest to where we can actually get that kind of experience. Concrete poses a lot of challenges for us from the Northwest because of the fact that it gives so much more grip to where most of us aren't used to that. So Crows being so close to home gives us a good opportunity to get down here. The concrete here is very grippy, which you found out today.
Yeah.
It's a big change from running at Packwood and running at PIR and other venues in the Northwest. So just the fact that there's so much grip and you can carry so much speed, it's fantastic down here.
Yes.
All right, I like it. So that was my fast run of the weekend on the right-hand course, and that happened to be on Saturday afternoon, coming in at a 42.1. And before we go into the left side, I just wanted to share some of the lessons that I learned. We ran the test and tune course on Friday and actually learned quite a bit there. I'm glad we did the test and tune because there was some understeer that we had to dial out of the car, handled a little bit differently on concrete at high speeds than it does normally in Portland or Packwood. So we we asked around a little bit. My shocks were already set at full stiff all the way around, and I've got the big 1¼ inch outside diameter front sway bar on the car, and it's already on the loose setting. So asking what we could do with air pressures, I asked Dan, and he recommended taking a couple pounds out of the front. And it was kind of funny, I asked one of our other Oregon region people what their recommendation was, and they said add a couple pounds to the rear. So it's interesting people's different tastes or what they go to adjust first when they're wanting to dial something out like understeer. But basically we ended up taking a couple pounds out of the front, and that helped on the test and tune course. Where we were really seeing it was this big turnaround, tight turnaround sweeper at the end of these fast offsets, and it just wanted to push and push. And the thing that really amazed me was taking 2 pounds out of the front made it feel like it was handling completely differently. It rotated like I felt like it should, and we were able to get back on throttle out of the corners on the test and tune course. So that was really interesting. I've never had such a small change be so noticeable at PIR or Packwood, and maybe that's because there's less grip up north or something along those lines. But another lesson that we learned, I actually changed tires during this event. We ran the test and tune course and all of Saturday with some older RE71s that had been used last year, and of course they ended up getting really scrubbed in for the surface, the abrasive concrete that we were running on. And then on Sunday we switched to the newer set of RE71s that I have, and it was really interesting. I don't know if they were just, well, they were cold in the morning, but beyond that, they felt like they just weren't gripping as well as the older set that I had. And you know, the only thing that I can attribute to that is that perhaps the surface of the older set had been scrubbed in more intimately with the surface of the abrasive concrete that we were running on. And I don't know if anybody maybe has an opinion about that, definitely let me know. But that was an interesting phenomenon that we ran into. And beyond that, it was trusting the gobs of grip that we did have, and trusting those tires. You know, it's a little bit of an unsettling feeling coming from a place like North Paddock at PIR or even Packwood, just sailing the car into these high-speed offsets down at Crows Landing and trusting that the grip is there and that the car is going to catch and set and do what you need it to do. And so it probably took me a good day to really feel more comfortable with that. And I noticed looking ahead as well, you know, usually looking ahead isn't a problem for me, and I felt like with these speeds and especially the offsets, you know, it felt like the next feature to look ahead to was you know, way off in the next county, and I'm just not used to looking that far ahead when we're talking about looking ahead. And the next feature at PIR or Packwood is you know, much closer than it is at Crows Landing. So that was interesting, and it presented a challenge of its own there. But I felt like we learned a lot. Some of the other points to make real quick before we jump into this left side video is that you know, there's distractions there, of course, with the E Street. I'm sure if anybody's been following the protest circus, you can you can make what you want of that, but you also have to, you know, when you're running in it and it's around you and you're sitting there in impound and all this is going on, you also have to be able to turn it off and just focus on the driving. And that's really what I was there for, and just to try and focus on my driving, especially with it being my first time. Usually distractions aren't a big problem for me, but speaking of distractions, I noticed on one thing that was a big problem for me was when I felt like I had the event on the line, feeling like I needed to improve my time on the right-hand side. It came down to my last right-hand side run, and I had a left-hand side run following that. But what ended up happening is I blew through the turnaround on the right-hand side run. I got into it a little too hot. Wasn't patient enough to let the car rotate on that quick, you know, on that lift between lifting off the brake and getting back on the throttle. So I got back on the throttle probably a little bit too early and committed to it in the Miata, and ended up pushing out and coning one of the outside wall cones on the exit, and that just completely discouraged me at that point. I felt like that was the event. That was everything left it all on the table there, and you know, I drove the rest of that run probably 95% coming back, or 9/10, and by the time it was still affecting me by the time I got around to the left side. You know, I still had an opportunity where I could have made some time up on the left side and maybe even gotten a top 5 out of the deal, but I was just completely discouraged. It took me probably about halfway through that left-hand side run where I said to myself, okay, well, at least try, you know, at least try and make something of this. And I was in the middle of driving the car at that point where I came back to the present moment, and I think it was Ross Bentley who said, you know, the best drivers, they don't hold their focus necessarily much better than anybody else, but they regain their focus a lot faster than other drivers, or anybody in sports or high performance type of activities. And so I felt like that was a lesson to be learned for me, being able to turn off the results in your head and just focus on the driving, especially when it counts. I don't always have a problem with it when it's maybe a regional event or not a whole lot is on the line, or I have a comfortable lead, but when everything was on the line and it was my last run, I really did let that get to me, and it took me a little bit to just kind of get back to normal, and at that point it was all learning opportunities there. So it's just money in the bank as far as my experience goes. But overall, it was a great event, and I would like to show you. I kind of want to compare. Before we jump into the left side here, I kind of want to compare this feature that I messed up, you could say. There was a lot of, when you're driving the car at the edge, you know, of the grip, there's a lot of pitch and catch, and I don't know if I overdrove this feature right before the turnaround, or if I just pitched the car too hard or what. But the point is my response was wrong. Once the car started to step out on me and I started to get quite a bit of oversteer, I did counter steer quite a bit actually, but my natural reaction was at a certain point, a good ways into the oversteer, I lifted the pedal. And of course, when I lifted off the gas, the nose, the front's bit, and I went straight, and I plowed a couple cones on the inside of that corner. And so we'll take a look at that real quick, and I'm actually going to compare it to Tony's run, Tony Rodriguez. His left side run, he did not as poorly as I did, but he had quite a bit of pitch and catch going into that same feature on the opposite side, on the opposite course, and it was some really masterful wheel work that he did to pull that one out, and that was actually his fast run for the day. So that was pretty interesting. But let's take a look here at this right side run real quick. So here's the right side run. I had a great launch. 5:18 launch. That was my best launch of the whole weekend. My 60-foot times were consistent, but reaction time was horrible for the most part. I felt like I had a really good run going on this one too. This is Saturday afternoon, and here we go right here. Quite a bit of oversteer, and my natural reaction pretty deep into that oversteer along with the counter steering was to lift the pedal, and that's when I went straight. So let's take just one more quick look at that for your own reference. maybe I just got the rears too loose, maybe a little bit too much nosedive as I'm pitching the car, but my reaction was wrong to lift off the pedal there. I felt like I should have stayed in it at that point. So let's bag that and take a quick look at Tony Rodriguez on the left side of the course, and we can actually just use this as our left side example here. He ended up with a 40.7 on the left side. It's probably top time in the class for the left side. Yeah, he just runs that ragged edge all of the time. You'll see it here, this feature coming up. So a couple different instances of pitch and catch there, and he just wheeled that masterfully to get into the turnaround entry. Amazing driving. So congrats again to Tony on winning the class there, taking E Street and getting into the Super Challenge. That was some awesome driving, and if you're looking to win in E Street, that's what you're up against. So just to wrap things up here, I had a really great time down there. I learned a lot. I race autocross for the competitiveness. I love seeing how you stack up against the field, and 6th out of 8 was not my not my ideal finish, but I got to keep it in perspective that was my first time, and I think most of the people that we raced against had driven Crows before, if not on a number of occasions. But I learned a lot. Just treat it as experience points, and go from there. I felt kind of like it was a 5-day, 1,500-mile exercise in delayed gratification. So it was. I'm hoping it'll pay off later, and got quite a bit of fun out of it. You have to remember to, like Dan said, you have to remember to have fun, and sometimes that can be difficult when you're screwing up or you're not finishing as well as you want to. But just remember you're there, you're doing it, you're in it with everybody else. And thanks again to everybody who helped us along the way. Dan for trailering the car down there for us, letting us catch a ride with the Sens Performance team. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, it's undergoing constant improvement, and so I just started it here a couple months ago, and it's all about autocross, learning to become a better driver, working towards the goals that you set for yourself, and making sure to have fun along the way and make friends along the way. And so we'll interview some of those people. I've got a fun interview coming up here this weekend. We're going to race the Northwest region, regional pro solo up in Packwood to get some practice ahead of the national event. And if you'd like to follow along, definitely subscribe. I hope you got something out of this video, what to do, probably more what not to do. But thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.